Let's talk supply chain. So, welcome to the show, John.
Oh, appreciate it. First time, long time. Thanks for having me.
I am excited to have you on the show. I mean, I had Chris on the show a couple months ago, and he gave us a
Awesome.
really great introduction to SDI and what you do. So, if you haven't listened to that episode, go and listen to that episode because it really does a deep dive into how you help your customers, right? We also talked about risk, demand, and we even touched on one of your really great blog posts where you talked about progress over perfection, which I love. I even sell a t shirt saying that.
Wow, not
so,
bad. Look at that synergy, huh?
I know. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today, getting the chance to go deeper, find out more about Zeus. And let me
Sure.
tell you, like, I love the names that people are calling their technologies. It's like pets, right?
Yep,
Um,
yep.
and
Powerful.
this technology is really changing that game. So let's totally dive in. Let's start with an introduction. Why don't you tell us who you are, your background, what you do at SDI, and for anyone who missed the first show, just remind us a little bit about who SDI is, what you do, and how you help your customers.
Sure. So my name is John Delegati. I'm Director of Digital Strategy at SDI. What that means is I get to do cool stuff with data. That's the best way I describe
Nice.
it, right? So I've been with the company for 7 years, and we're really a unique company. We help other companies streamline their supply chain processes, make sure they're running best in class operations, and achieving best pricing and lead times possible from their suppliers. So for my team, that means developing the analytics, the supplier scorecards, all the reporting we need to manage, complex transactions for some of the largest companies in the world.
Amazing. I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of fun on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it's nice to enjoy what you do, and I'm what you might call a data nerd. I do very well in fantasy football, suspiciously well, right? And it's because it's a data game. That's all it is. I keep telling my friends it's not witchcraft. I work in data, and it's a data game, right? So, I do enjoy the way that data helps us, put together a puzzle that we don't necessarily know what it's supposed to look like, but we have all these different elements that we can
Right.
use to put it together, and that's what we do here, right? Because the supply chain is extremely complicated, to people who aren't in the everyday. And I'm sure you've covered
Right.
it on the pod. But a ship in the Suez Canal throws off stuff halfway around the world, and people who aren't in the industry would never think about that. To us, it's like,
Absolutely.
duh.
And
So go ahead.
well, and I think you may have just made some new fantasy football best friends. So
Oh,
if you
really?
do get messages about this, you know where it came from.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, good to hear. Yeah, yeah. I'll charge for that advice. I'll have to work up a structure if it keeps coming in.
Yes, let's do it. All
Yeah.
right. So now data is something we've been talking about for quite a long time. I feel like ever since I started the podcast, we have been using the word data for
Sure.
one thing or another, right? For
Yep.
numerous reasons, we just don't seem to be making enough progress that we're still talking about it. So what
Sure.
are some of like the main challenges that you see with your customers when it comes to data?
Well, it actually, I'm glad you mentioned that progress over perfection blog we had done, because it's a perfect answer, right? Are we not progressing, or are we moving the goalposts, right?
Okay.
If you look at what we have available today, in most cases, it's significantly better over what was available at your company before. Now, whether your company, where they sit on the analytics maturity curve, that's another story, right? There are certain industries, and we deal with them, especially in the MRO and in the manufacturing, right? If you have plants that are out in the middle of more or less nowhere, and sometimes they just don't have the budget for the technology that other plants have, they're still going to be dealing with, the data stone ages, for lack of a better term, right?
Right.
So I do think that all companies have improved in their digital maturity. It's just a matter of what are your goals, and a
Right.
part of that, I mean, about this time last year, all anyone could talk about for the last year has been generative AI, chat GPT, right? That's something that's, again, moved the goalposts. Wow, what can we do with this? And really, what people don't realize, once you get past, hey, it can develop a cool vegan recipe with what I have in my fridge. It's a
Can
data.
it? I didn't even
It's
know
Oh,
that.
listen, we could do a whole podcast on that, trust me. But once you get past those, random use cases you can have for yourself, it becomes a data problem. What data can I feed this model that will generate a business outcome for me that's positive, that will improve a process, right?
Right.
Um, so I think it's good that we're still talking about it, because it means that it's top of mind and we're continuing to advance, and it proves that the field is ever evolving. Because if it was cut and dry, like you need to implement data, well, we'd be done with it already, and that's not the
Mhm.
case. We're still
Right.
talking about it because it's continues to evolve and it's always relevant.
Well, and I think it's a journey, right? All of us think that it's a destination, but we need to talk about it as being a journey because it's
Yep.
something that like you said is ever evolving and
Yep.
that we're going to have to do different things with it as we move forward in technology. But one of the things that I wonder around data is have people really cleaned up their data and do they do it in enough frequency that it makes a difference, right?
Well,
Because
yep.
like data is only as good as the good data, right? There,
Right.
but there's
Well, the
bad
analysis is
data.
only as good as what we're putting in, right? So yeah, it's a great question, and I think it really goes to cleaning up your data when people think of it. And yes, there's processes that can clean up data, but that's a process. Cleaning
Right.
up your data in some cases is viewed as a one-time event. And when that's the case, you're not doing it right. What
Mm,
you need to do is establish processes that will eliminate the need to clean your data in the
okay.
future, right?
Fair point.
So while yes, there's always some sort of massaging that'll need to be done to the data, we're talking about inputs and outputs here, right? And if you get a garbage input and you throw it into the world's best process, if it hasn't accounted for that variation, it might throw some smoke and gears might shoot out, right? But
Mhm.
if you can help, develop processes, right? So just in a basic sense, if you're at a plant and you used to be able to order by typing in "I need a wrench," and
Mhm.
now you have to type in a part number and a
Right.
description. As simple as that, right? Now I know manufacturer name and a part number. I can cross-reference that with other orders and understand how many of those I'm using, right?
Right.
Whereas if I get I need a wrench, even if I get 5 people that say I need a wrench, I don't know which wrench it is, right?
Right.
So it's about establishing those processes for the long haul, and data cleanup should be done either for the purposes of reporting, right?
Mhm.
Taking your ingested data and making it mean something like
Right.
a trick, or put it into a scorecard.
Mhm.
Or you should be developing those processes to ingest that, I should say, and then cleaning it should sort of be okay. We've identified this gap in our process. How do we make that gel with the good data, right? And then
Mhm.
it's an activity of making everything align, and then hopefully, you combine those forces, and in the future, your process ingests good data and produces good data, and knows how to handle the bad stuff, right? That's
Yeah.
the
I feel like, the Budweiser light when like somebody scores a hockey goal.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I feel like we need multiple of those on our desks at
I like
one
it.
time
Yeah.
so that when we do something and you're like, it's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it'd be nice if it came with an easy button, but
we
it's not
need
always the
that. We need
case.
that for data. All right.
We'll
So
do.
let's talk about Zeus because I mentioned
Sure.
it at the top of the show. How does Zeus fit in? Because I think it's the technology behind your solution. Love the name. I'd like to know where that came from as well. And it just has a very godly name.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
tell
yeah.
us about how it's answering some of those challenges, giving organizations power over their supply chains. What makes it different to other technologies?
Yeah, so it's purpose built for the supply chain problems that the industries we deal with encounter, right? The pricing, the lead times, the operations, the
So
inventory.
many things.
So, right, and when you think about it, there's software out there that can do those individual things really well. And we're not just a software company; it involves service as well, which is why I'm careful when I say that. But because there's that element of the expertise and uniqueness of each account and each client that
Right.
we work with. But it's the combination or the ability to see all of those levers in one view. Zeus, think of it as all seeing, all knowing. I'm sure, it was marketing and the CEO. I'm sure some combination of those godly forces, came up with the name. But if you think about Zeus as kind of sitting at the mountaintop and seeing everything, it's because it's a
Oh.
360-degree view of your information, at least from the analytics perspective, right?
Mhm.
So the Zeus analytics platform is unique because it can, coalesce the inventory data from this system with the inventory data from that system and the purchasing data from systems 1, 2, and 3. And, the list goes on, but it understands how that data should talk to each other. And using, APIs or, direct connections to these systems, we can ingest that data and create that 360-degree, what we call the control tower view,
Mm.
that enables you to ask really impactful business questions.
Mhm.
Not just ask them, make a couple clicks of a mouse, and you'll see the details of the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So, hey, why am I having a problem with late orders at this location? Oh, well, it looks like in this location, the delays were January and February. Oh, that's an Alaska location. They had 2 feet of snow. Just simple things like that, right?
Huh.
That's an outlier. We can explain it because we have data on the location. We have data on the lead times. We have data on when the delay happened. And we can track that with outside information to come up with these, conclusions, right? So
Mhm.
that's an example where there's a unique cause to your variation, right? Whereas another, in another area, perhaps you're having lead time delays, and it's because you're ordering through a single vendor, a significant volume who's just not performing well, right? That could be a legitimate cause of your delay.
Mhm.
And then, you would take your question and point it at your supplier scorecard and say, okay, let's take a deeper dive into this supplier, right? So it's that ability to see everything, ask powerful questions, and in a relatively short order, have a much better understanding of the situation and make an intelligent decision.
Kinda like Siri for your supply chain.
Yeah, yeah. Well, generative AI, we mentioned that, right? So we'll get that in there. Hey Siri, show me this. I'm sure it'll.
But it'll be like, "Hey, Zeus,"
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
right?
Yeah, we'll have to get a voiceover artist coming in as well. Make
I
some Zeus,
love that.
Zeus voices.
I can do it, hire me. All right.
All right.
Um, and I think you also created an analytics guidebook to go alongside of Zeus, really. And for anybody looking for this resource, I just want to let you know it's going to be in the show notes. You can also find in the comments on social media. We're going to put this link everywhere so you can go and get this guidebook because it's pretty meaty, right? Like it's a great resource. It's not the kind of thing I see companies giving away very often, if ever. So, why did you decide to produce the guidebook? And what does it mean for those who are going to sign up for it?
Absolutely. So, problem that we see, or I'd call it an opportunity, is the fact that in our workforce, more and more people are being asked to work with large amounts of data, interpret it, make sense of it, and then act upon it. And they're not necessarily trained to, right? I manage the analytics team. It's second nature for us, but it doesn't mean that your operator at a plant or your procurement professional or et cetera knows all the ins and outs of data, its behavior, why they,
Right.
can they identify why there's duplicates on this report? Would they know if there's bad data? It could be as simple as looking at some summary of the how much money did I spend column, and it's $10 billion, and you say that's impossible. We don't spend $10 billion. Some of it,
Right.
to me or to a data professional, may be considered second nature, common sense. But if you're not trained in that, and if you don't know how to look for that, it's not. And
Mm,
there's simple. It's data literacy, data evangelism. There's things we can do to spread this and help ensure that the subject matter experts in their field know enough about data to be dangerous, right?
right.
And one example that I'll give as the inspiration for the guidebook, was we were working with a client, and they understood, what cycle counting was, and they understood why they had to do it. But someone asked them simply, "Hey, can you define cycle counting, like the definition?" And there really isn't a Webster's dictionary for some of these KPIs, some of these
Oh,
operational
I
terms
do. I have a
that we
supply chain
use,
dictionary, just so
right?
you know.
Well, I'm sure you do, but it's not necessarily, in the Webster's official, right? It's sort of
Yeah,
its own
true.
thing.
True,
So
true.
that was the goal here is, what? Here is the English language dictionary of cycle counting. Here's why we need to do it. Here are some charts and relevant graphs that would show how this may be used to power business decisions.
Right.
That's the idea, right? Understanding these people may work in the field and have so much experience doing the actions, but they've never sat down and had to, define it, right? And
Mm.
that who it's not necessarily something that they need to do in their day to day of their job, but if they understand it better, it helps them understand the organization better and make better decisions for the organization.
But if they don't know how to do it, right?
Sure.
They've never really had to do it before. This is not their bailiwick, right? They're supply chain professionals, like you said, they're procurement professionals. All of a sudden, they have to read all of this data and be expected to understand it, right? And
Yeah.
be able to and expected to interpret it, which really is not realistic. I mean, let's be honest. And not all supply chain teams, not all procurement teams are going to be given the resources as far as employees or team
Right.
members that are going to be able to love it, right? Because you have to love it, right? To
Sure.
really interpret it properly, to understand it, to be able to make the business case, the business discussions around what this technology actually means to your day to day.
Sure.
And so I think that that's, like you said, it's very unrealistic for us to expect people, and especially if they don't like it, they're going to sit on it.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Yep.
sit on it and they're gonna put it aside because they will get to it, but there's fires that they need to put out. There's a lot of things that supply chain professionals are dealing with. And so they need great tools. They need
Absolutely.
really, really good resources to be able to feel supported in their role and understand that this is realistically not something that they necessarily signed up to. Maybe they've been in that role for a very long time. And
Yeah.
so you actually call this, I think, the data analytics Bible or something like that.
Yeah,
So
we ended up revising it to the guidebook or the playbook. However, yeah, that's how I would treat it. Right? Is it's your companion? You know, if
Mhm.
the goal was, to your point, it's a lot to digest. But was there a document that I could go in and say Control F cycle count? What does it
Right.
mean? Doesn't mean I need to study it every night. But if I
Know
needed
where it is.
the pinch, I need to know where it is. You know,
Mhm.
something that you mentioned, and it's an important aspect of this guidebook is putting out fires. Right now, data should drive the business, but the use cases need to come from the business, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, the example of putting out fires just in general, a lot of these fires that we speak of could be avoided if you could see them coming, right? Predictive
Okay.
analytics or
Yeah, yeah.
prescriptive analytics,
Mhm.
depending on, you know, how you're trying to approach it, right? So, you know, we've implemented alerts based on these analytics, and we use what we call related KPIs and metrics to indicate some of these problems coming. So, just as an example, uh, a fire that I would consider is, say, like a critical item being out of stock when someone needs it, right? A
Okay.
plant going down, or a refrigerator breaking, and all the meat goes bad, right? You get the idea. That's critical. So we track, and one of the metrics in the guidebook is, you know, your fill rate for critical spares and your on-time delivery for critical spares. Those are related. You are going to experience fill rate problems if you've been experiencing delivery problems for the last month,
Right.
right? It's an indicator. So if you can have an alert that says, hey, for the last week, a lot of your orders are late and you might experience stockout issues, now you can get ahead of those fires. So you're right. You don't expect these people to come in and be data experts, but at the same time, if you use the data to your advantage, it enables you to run these best in class operations at peak efficiency, because
Mhm.
otherwise you risk being derailed by distractions, right? So the idea, again, there's always going to be exceptions, but if we can shake them out of the tree and understand why they happen, okay, we might run out of stock next week because this was late. Maybe we need to place a hot shot order now to get ahead of it, right? At least
Mhm.
you can mitigate it before there's true damage. So it's why it's the imperative to use these types of technologies and have something like this available as a reference. Because if you use the data, you can get, you know, far ahead of these challenges before they become fires.
Well, and distractions. We're
Yeah,
all human.
absolutely.
Right?
Uh,
We're gonna get distracted. Things are gonna happen. Other things are gonna take our attention away from what we need to do, and then we're gonna come back to it. And so it's resources like this that are gonna help supply chain professionals in their day to day. Now, question for you: is this resource for everybody, or do you have to be an analyst to understand it?
It's a great question.
Who's it
You know,
for?
it would help some more than others. What I would say though is, if your organization engages in any sort of, you know, operations, where you have boots on the ground, you're maintaining a warehouse, a site facility, anything like that, it's going to be helpful. It's akin to why they make you study finance in an MBA, right? Even though you may not be in a finance role, it really helps you understand the balance sheet, cash flows, in making larger business decisions, even if it's not your direct role. So, right. So that's how I would describe it. It would be directly relevant to the work of a site manager or someone in procurement. But even
Okay.
if you're in finance or HR or any of those, you know, roles that may not directly interact with the components of the supply chain, it can still help you really understand your business, which we all have our roles, right? But do we understand how it interconnects with the larger business? And when we do, frankly, there's better outcomes, right? We can understand how one hand washes the other.
Right.
Um, I
So,
think it's
so talk to me about that site manager. Sorry to interrupt, but talk to me
yeah,
about that site manager, right? Do I
sure.
use this resource, this guidebook, to enhance my job function? And how do I make the most out of the insights that are inside? Like, what difference is it going to make for me specifically?
Oh, it's a great question. You know, so as a site manager, you are responsible for the operations aspects, for the receiving, the put away,
Mhm.
the handout of the orders. but you're affected by upstream issues in the supply chain. So
Right.
you're not responsible necessarily for placing that order or for finding the right vendor to fulfill that order in a timely manner. So if by using this book, it can help you understand, for example, the nuances of getting that item from the request to on a purchase order to your door, right? And you can understand where is the holdup. Maybe if you keep getting orders late, you can look into your supplier scorecard for your site and understand, hey, I keep requesting items from vendor A when if I requested them from vendor B, they'd get here faster, right? So even though that's
Right.
not necessarily his responsibility, he can understand and affect the outcome. Perhaps he or she could meet with their, procurement manager assigned to that account so they could talk
Mhm.
about it, right? Hey, this is what's happening. I think it's because the orders are late. So what can we do about it, right? And then something else you mentioned that's important is how do you engage the content? So like you said, it's a large book and you can download it. For SDI, for our co-op members, however, and for our internal folks as well, but for members of our co-op who sign up, our new supply chain cooperative offering, this will be an educational resource that they're able to access as a class, right? So they can sign up X number of seats based on signing up for a cooperative to take these in bite-sized courses that explain to you what the definitions of these metrics are, how you can use them in your
Mm.
job function, and actually give a brief demo of our analytics software, walking through how a manager would use it in their day to day. So
Right.
that's what we're going to use, and we do use to train our folks internally. But that will actually be available for our members very soon as well.
What is the co-op? I
Oh,
haven't
the
heard of the
co-op is
co-op.
our it's a solution that we bring to folks who are looking for leverage buying power, in the indirect and the MRO market, right? So
Okay.
we've got a list
Cool.
of suppliers that have signed up, very robust, and we're signing up clients left and right. It's rapidly growing. And training is one of the differentiators that we're going to offer as part of this co-op membership, right? There's anyone out there that could promise you that you'll save X%. That's great. How do you differentiate? Well, we can help you implement a best in class solution by providing these educational tools in addition to those cost savings.
Everybody's looking at education. I love that. One of the things that I've been speaking to people about in 2024 is upskilling and
Mm.
the emphasis that they're going to be putting on learning. And so partnering with somebody like an SDI who already has that in place and knows where we need to be learning a little bit more. I mean,
And
that's
you mentioned,
that's
why
great.
do you put this out there? That's why. We want to show that we're in a unique market position where we don't really care who you buy stuff from. We want to give you the best possible experience in the
Right.
supply chain.
Awesome.
So, we figure that why would you put it out there? We want to educate folks so they realize, all of the factors that come into play in getting that part from the requester to the ultimate end user.
Absolutely. Now, you spoke about metrics and KPIs. You've actually been
Sure.
mentioning it a little bit. I think feel like you've been dropping some seeds for me. But metrics and KPIs, they've been coming up a lot for me recently in conversations. Everything from gender to sustainability to,
Absolutely.
supply chain, operations, even marketing. So this idea of moving away from cost only as a metric and setting KPIs that actually mean something to the business, right? Figuring out
Absolutely.
what they should be in the first place, I think is a little bit hard, right? It feels like a
Absolutely.
goalpost that keeps moving. So,
Mhm.
how does this guidebook help people on the journey of figuring out what those metrics should be, those KPIs? Where do we keep ourselves accountable? How do we keep ourselves accountable? And what KPIs are actually meaningful to what we do on a day to day?
Absolutely. So at SDI, we track significantly more metrics and KPIs than are actually in the book. Our mission was to find the most meaningful crop of analytics to create a foundation for you, right? So a little
Okay.
bit from operations, a little bit from procurement, some miscellaneous and data quality metrics. And the intent is to give you a foundation. If you ask me, they all matter, right? But reality is, if you're starting from scratch, right, you may say, I want to focus in on procurement. Okay, there's a procurement
Mm-hmm.
section. I want to focus in on my suppliers. Okay, there's a supplier scorecard. You mentioned cost only metrics. Our supplier scorecard, while cost is absolutely a variable in analyzing any bid,
Right.
their actual performance has nothing to do with cost. It
Right.
has to do with, are you delivering on time? Are you communicating that delivery time? Am I getting a tracking number so I can follow it and say, packages on the dock, and now you can finish the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's those types of things. So we're not even measuring costs; we're measuring quality metrics. So for a company like SDI, we've been there for a while, but perhaps others aren't, and that's why we want to provide this as sort of that template. Now, folks can pick and choose what they want out of there, but having a target really helps.
Hmm.
As someone who develops analytics applications myself, right? I can go in there with some assumptions and try my best and shoot with a shotgun, and I'll probably find a couple of metrics that matter.
Hmm.
But someone will probably say, "Yeah, but these five don't mean anything. What is that?" And I said, "Hey, I was just sniffing around." But if you tell me I care about one, two, three, and here's how I want it to look, that's easy, right?
Hmm.
So we're giving these people the target, the KPIs that matter. And then, previously in the conversation, you mentioned data quality. So then they can look at their data and say, do I have the data to produce this, right? That's
Right.
going to be a fundamental question. But at least you have a target and you can work towards the target, because if you don't even know if you have that data, it's a big, you can't eat the elephant, right? You need to take a piece that's digestible and see what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the first initial questions are, what do I care about in that
Yes.
particular element?
Critical. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And do I have the data quality to be able to back it up so that, these are really going to be meaningful to me?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. And I like the fact that, because like you said, they all matter.
Yep.
So when you said that, I felt like the overwhelm of the
Yeah.
audience that's listening to
Absolutely.
this be like, okay, but what now? Because I got to start somewhere, right? I only
Yes,
have so much
absolutely.
time. I only have so much budget. I only have so much. Da, 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 da. So when
Yep,
you said that, start in one corner.
yep,
Start in one corner that means the most, that you can make the most impact, and maybe that you already know what you care the most about so that you can bang those KPIs off fairly
absolutely,
quickly and put them into place.
absolutely. And you mentioned it earlier. It's a journey. It's iterative improvement, right? So you pick
Mm,
a segment, you develop that segment, you share the success, you get other buy-in, and then you move on, right? Now, you can also, and I mentioned it before, the business needs to drive the reporting. It needs to make sure that it's impactful, right? And how you
mm,
wrangle the data. So it's often helpful to nominate, subject matter experts as sort of the champion for their vertical and say, hey, here's the 4 or 5 things I really care about. And then you can get everything together and create sort of that balanced view. Okay, what do I need to see? Again, maybe the VP of procurement cares about 100 things, but these are the 5 that really matter and that he's
mhm.
going to want to communicate over to finance and vice versa, right? These are the ones that intertwine that everybody needs
Yeah.
to know. So that's another. You need to have champions within the departments, because if you walk around and just beat people with a data stick, it doesn't quite work.
That's funny. Well, and the other thing to consider too is I said that the goalposts keep moving, and that's
Yep.
not necessarily a bad thing, right? What we
Right.
care about today could change in a
Absolutely.
year, 18 months, 2 years. So we also always need to be going back to those KPIs and asking ourselves that question. Do we still care about these? If yes, okay, is there anything else that we care about that we're missing? Or maybe these need to be changed out. So I love
Absolutely.
this conversation because I think too many times we're like you said, one and done, right? Let's set these KPIs and then we're golden, but things are changing so quickly that you do need to go back and review them.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen, with all the supply chain delays spawning from COVID
Mhm,
and the after effects of that. We've seen companies moving from just in time to just in case. That was another good one I had in a blog, I think. But moving from not having anything in inventory and ordering it so it shows up right when you need it, to saying,
mhm.
"Hey, I don't know how reliable that is," and taking on millions of working capital and inventory
Yeah.
to make sure they have the part, right? Going
Mhm.
from trying to get by on the skin of their teeth to ordering 2 extra just in case and having
Yeah.
them overneeded, right?
Yeah.
That was a big shift, and that happened right before our eyes. So
Mhm.
who knows what will happen next, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and what if I'm struggling with data? Like we've talked about data at the beginning, we talked about the importance of it, the challenges. Everybody's having some challenges, I would assume, with data. How
Mhm.
does this guidebook really help individuals or maybe organizations struggling with some of the data challenges that we talked about earlier? How does it help them navigate through those?
Yeah. So once they, define what's important to them, it takes leadership buy-in for sure, because it's generally transformational change that would power that business process improvement. But if you need to see cycle counting and your process is producing bad data for cycle counting, you need to fix the process. You need to go to the root cause and you
Mm,
need to understand why you're getting that bad data. Can we fix it with some coding? Is it a training issue? Whatever it is, right? So if you're struggling with data, this book would help you understand what's important. You work backwards to saying, what data do I need to calculate that? And then you assess the quality of that data. Is
mm,
it good or is it garbage? as we know, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if we check the
Mhm.
garbage box, then we need to go a step back and say, what process is creating this garbage data? And that is our first target. And it will serve
Mm.
us, upstream or downstream.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like if you, I think if you misspell a word, right, in
Yep.
data.
Yep. Well, if you're going by descriptions, and that's why free-form descriptions are so difficult. Like in our
Yeah,
field, when we're doing analysis on part numbers, it's part IDs.
yeah,
That's how we make items. If you want to create an item that says wrench, good luck. We have a master data team. They're not going to let that
yeah,
one by.
right.
So,
You are not gonna get away with that one. But I
I
mean,
mean,
even on numbers, people make mistakes and things like that too,
no,
right?
it's true, and we account for that. For example, when we report analytics on spend, how much our transactional dollar values are worth. We don't finalize that reporting until we receive a voucher and match it because we know that might happen. So you know what? If I send an order that says it's supposed to be $5 million, we have things in place to catch it, but let's pretend we don't. Um, I would also need to receive an invoice that was $5 million, and then someone else would need to look at it and say,
Mhm.
"Yep, that's $5 million when it's supposed to be $5." Right? So there's certain checks and balances in place to that effect. But there will always be ways to inject bad data into a process. Right? People or systems will find a way. So it's not to say that you can avoid everything, but you
Mhm.
need to understand the universe of possible scenarios and then kind of target, the ones that
Yeah.
will affect you the
Well,
most.
and that's just in supply chain. I need that for when I pay the government because I overpaid them a couple
Oh,
months
I believe it.
ago, and
Don't
I
get me
needed
started.
that light going near, near,
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you
You put
did.
an extra zero in there.
Oh no.
All right. So, digital transformation, it continues to be a hot topic, right? And at the
Yep.
same time, we're hearing about extensive project failure when it
Sure.
comes to technology. I think a lot of that might come down to lack of resources, lack of understanding, lack of support, maybe, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so you've created this guidebook. We've been talking about this guidebook, and I think it can really help maybe bridge that gap, maybe lay the groundwork for success and support businesses with knowledge that they can understand and maybe actually action themselves. So is that true, right? Like you're going to go into the guidebook, you're going to be able to learn all sorts of things, but then it's going to give you sort of a map on how to take action on some of these things?
Sure. So, these metrics again, they're the outcome of a successful process, right?
Right.
So, in order to have purchasing data, and let's say the metric you want to attack is how long does it take me to place a purchase order? In
Mhm.
order to have that data, I need to understand when did the request come in, when did I place the order, right? I need two sides of the equation, right? So,
Mhm.
okay, I have that information. Well, if the process isn't generating that information, and I mentioned it in an earlier answer, I alluded to it. That's a digital transformation project, right? If you're
Okay.
using a system that is not recording the data correctly and you need to change that process. You need to overhaul it generally, right? So, what this will do is by highlighting the things that are critical to your business, as an organization, you could say, this is the most important thing to me. We are taking too long to place orders and it's causing delays in our process to repair an asset, right? We need
Mhm.
to fix this. Based on this data, we can't even tell how long it takes, but based on anecdotes, it takes 5 days, right? Let's just make it up. At SDI, we seek to place orders in less than 48 hours. And part of that is because we're going out and doing competitive bids. So we're not just taking the first price and saying, great, thank you. We're looking at multiple vendors. We
Right.
can do it in a shorter time frame if, say price isn't an issue,
Mhm.
hypothetically, right? All that being said, if you know that you're taking 5 days and your goal is 2 days, that's not something that you're going to fix just by having the data. You're going to
Right.
need to institute some significant change.
Mhm.
I would venture to say that in that vein, you would need a technological improvement. Otherwise, your staff is really just slacking, and you're going to have to look in the mirror, right?
Right,
If
right, right.
if by saying, "Hey, giddy up," you can double your performance, that's a tough conversation to have, right? So generally, when you create these KPIs, you can use a process called benchmarking to understand where you relate to the industry standard, right? Maybe
Mhm.
you don't know that 2 days is best in class. Maybe you think 5 is okay. Well, you can either gather some data yourself from your peers or there's research reports available and say, what is the average requisition to order time? What
Right.
is the average on time delivery for this commodity?
Mhm.
And then you can compare your results to the industry standard. And if there's a significant gap, again, that's an identified opportunity for a transformation project because your
Hmm.
business is doing something outside of the norm that's causing you delay.
And that's really interesting because when you hear the word digital transformation, I feel like the first thing that we go to is this humongous project, right? It's got to be end to end. Everything's not working, and we need to
Right.
make everything digital now.
It's the transformation word. That's the problem. What people need to realize is it's iterative improvement. And I know we said it with the analytics, but that's what it is. If I can make a process 70% better today, isn't that better than doing nothing because I can't make it perfect? Right. It's not so much from the
Mhm.
analytics perspective, but I've got some experience in the RPA field, robotic process automation, little robots to do some of your tasks for you. And it's one of the shortfalls in that area is people, expect it to fulfill 100% of the use cases. And
Right.
it can do pretty good job. It might not be able to do everything. And a lot of times you don't get the buy-in from even senior leadership in some cases because well, there's that exception. So people are gonna have to do it anyway. And it's like, yeah, but if they were doing it for 40 hours a month, and now they're
Right.
doing it for 8, you've got almost a week of time back for them to do
Yeah.
other things, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what people miss with digital transformation sometimes is it doesn't have to be a change your entire company initiative. It can be, but it depends on your organization. A lot of times, there's processes that can be improved that feed into the overall
Yeah.
delivery, client delivery experience, and that's how it should be attacked.
Well, and that's more manageable,
Yeah,
I
absolutely, and
think,
it's realistic.
right?
It's all about setting smart goals. Is it realistic to totally reinvent a company that, in our case, is 53 years old in a few months? No. Can you fix parts of it over time and then boom, there's a transformation? Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
more
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
digestible, right? And not everyone has the funds to just completely change their company overnight on a whim, right? You need to take steps. You can't just
Well,
press play.
and that's the impact that everybody's looking for.
Right.
Right? We're not necessarily looking for making a huge impact right away and it's going to happen. It's
Yep.
about taking small wins and
Absolutely.
building on those small wins for that big win eventually as well. And again, it's not a destination, right? You're going to
Right.
continually have to do this. So there's always going to be digital transformation. There's
You nailed
always
it.
going to be digital transformation projects, but they don't have to be super big and overwhelming and thinking that we have to change everybody's behavior because that's what we talk about when we talk about digital transformation. And it could be small things, small wins that are impactful,
Absolutely.
that are meaningful also to the team because that's what the team is looking for as well, right? They're looking to make an impact. They're looking to have meaning in their job, and that could be the meaning that they're looking for. Now, you mentioned, procurement as well.
Yeah, for
So if
sure.
I'm in procurement, I don't know, maybe I'm a procurement manager, VP of procurement, how would I
Sure.
use this guidebook? How would it help me and my team?
Well, as a VP, you would generally understand most of these concepts, but again, that reference guide, Control F, look for what I need. Here it is. That could be helpful, right? Good
Yeah, yeah.
reference book. But really, it would help you set SOPs and train your team, right? So, in this case, we worked in conjunction with our VP of procurement and his team to develop this stuff, right? Same with the operations team. We worked with operations, right? So, yes, we're the analytics team, but we, asked the experts to make sure we had everything, on the up
Yep.
and up. Right?
Mhm.
So, in an organization that didn't make this book and was using it,
Mhm.
I would say that they could use it as a resource to train their staff, to reference best practices, and to make the team aware not just of what they're tracking, right? So, I keep referencing the supplier scorecard. It's based on how we measure suppliers. Other organizations might measure them differently, but the point of a balanced scorecard that's made up of percentages of
Mhm.
different metrics can still be valid, regardless of the organization,
Mm.
right? And then further down the line, like I referenced earlier, it's helpful to know finance regardless of your job because it helps you understand the business. It can help his or her procurement team understand what goes on downstream with the operations team, what's going on with finance and their metrics, or what's going on with the data team and why are they busting their chops about setting up this item? Well, it's because they have data quality metrics that you're not meeting the right quality, so they're not going to set up your item, right?
Right.
So it helps, enhance that organizational understanding and ensure that everyone's on the same page, right? There's not
Mhm.
two definitions of the same word, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, finally then, what does 2024 hold for SDI? What's to come? I'm excited.
Well, you already let me tease the co-op, so I just want to say again that we expect that to continue to blow up. So this guidebook should help light the way. But we believe that supply chain co-op, for the organizations that sign up will be extremely beneficial and will be able to disseminate this knowledge to their team. So I am hoping in 2024 to spread the good word about data, regardless of how you
Yep.
acquire it. And I'm hoping that you acquire it through our playbook here.
Yeah, go check out the co-op, go check out the guidebook. Again, we're going to be putting that link in the show notes, in the comments of our social posts and all of that, and I'm pretty sure you can find it on the website as well. So, despite the
Definitely.
huge amount of data generated on a daily basis across supply chain, many organizations are still failing to understand and analyze it, leaving them making decisions based on gut and not on accurate insights. Well, SDI are firm believers in data literacy. With increasing amounts of data being generated every day, it has become essential for businesses to understand and make use of this data to stay ahead of the competition. So, SDI aims to equip both their workforce and clients with the skills and knowledge needed to make informed decisions based on data driven insights. Because by understanding how to interpret and analyze the data, you can gain a deeper understanding of your business operations, make better informed decisions, and achieve your goals. So, if you want to find out more, you can go and check them out at SDI.com. And did you have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you today's guest services the FM and MRO supply chains, but how much is the United States facility management market set to be worth in 2024? Well, the FM market size is estimated at 267 billion in 2024 and is expected to reach nearly 371 billion by 2029. Now, that is some growth, right, John?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I keep talking about the co-op. It's going up, up, up.
Awesome. Well, a massive thanks to the team at SDI for making this episode happen. And John, thanks so much for coming on, sharing your experiences, your perspectives, your insights. And I can't wait to hear about some of the transformations that we're going to hear about from that guidebook. So thanks for coming on and sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to your book report on the Guidebook.
Book report.